On day one of NATO's summit in Vilnius, the alliance suggests there's no concrete timeline for Ukraine's membership, much to the dissatisfaction of President Zelenskyy.
Kyiv remembers the victims of Russia's war in Ukraine, but fierce fighting continues to the east.
At least 70 people have been arrested in Tel Aviv after demonstrators blocked motorways in protest of government reform of the judicial system. NATO leaders say they will allow Ukraine to join the military alliance, but when allies agree and conditions are met. However, this was not the clear outcome Ukraine's President Zelenskyy was looking for. A dinner in the Lithuanian capital Vilnius rounded off day one of the summit. The talks had shown that Baltic states had wanted a clear pathway towards Ukraine's membership. However, the US and Germany saw that as a provocation to Russia rather than a deterrence against aggression. The alliance chiefs said Ukraine could be encouraged. A NATO-Ukraine Council is to be established, which will give Kyiv the right to summon meetings of the whole alliance, and applying for membership would be faster in the future.
We reaffirmed that Ukraine will become a member of NATO and agreed to remove the requirement for a membership action plan. This would change Ukraine's membership path from a two-step process to a one-step process.
Earlier, President Zelenskyy addressed a concert, not mincing his words about NATO's hesitancy.
Сьогодні я поїхав дорогу сюди з вірою у рішення, з вірою у партнерів, з вірою у сильне НАТО. У НАТО, яке не сумнівається, не втрачає час і не озирається на будь-якого агресора.
On the second and final day of the summit, climate security will feature, and partners in the Indo-Pacific region, including Australia and Japan, will attend.
While NATO leaders meet in Vilnius to talk about their future relationship with Ukraine, instructors from the Atlantic Alliance have been training Ukrainian soldiers in urban combat techniques. France is doing it in Poland, in a camp, the location of which remains secret for security reasons.
Il y a une demande spécifique des militaires ukrainiens pour s'entraîner en zone urbaine. Donc nous répondons à cette attente en proposant le meilleur de notre expérience et de nos capacités.
Instructors teach them how to fight in an urban setting with houses, cars, walls and debris. Very useful training given the course of the war against Russia.
Il y a beaucoup de savoir-faire qui sont mis en œuvre, la façon de rentrer dans un bâtiment, de passer devant une fenêtre, de traverser une rue. Tout ça, ça peut paraître extrêmement simple, mais en fait, il y a des techniques qui sont enseignées et qui sont répétées, qui sont démontrées par les instructeurs français et qui sont répétées X fois jusqu'à ce que les militaires ukrainiens les maîtrisent le mieux possible.
Ukrainian soldiers are receiving training in many NATO countries in the handling of weapons, armoured vehicles, etc. But the Ukrainian army also conducts intensive training at home. These soldiers fight almost daily on the front line, and they use the few lulls in the war to improve their combat skills.
Дальше нас там ставят эти КПВТ, По каким позициям уже выполнили годовой?
Сделали дополнительную защиту радиаторов. Спереди. В чем преимущество? Высокая ремонтопригодность.
Thousands of Israeli protesters have blocked the roads in country's main international airport in huge demonstrations against the government's plans to overhaul the judicial system. At least 70 people have been arrested. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's ultra-nationalist and ultra-Orthodox allies have proposed a series of bills that have provoked months of sustained protest by opponents who say the government is being pushed towards authoritarian rule.
אני מפגינה כבר למעלה מחצי שנה, כי הממשלה שלנו החליטה לשנות את הפנים של המדינה ולהפוך אותנו ממדינה דמוקרטית שמקבלת את כולם ודואגת לזכויות של כולם, למדינה לא שוויונית שדואגת אך ורק לאינטרסים האישיים של האנשים שנמצאים כרגע בשלטון.
יש פה ממשלה שפשוט בתחושה שלי לא סופרת את האזרחים שלה. חצי מהעם נקרא וזה פשוט כואב הלב מה שהם עושים למדינה היפה שלנו
Tuesday's day of disruption came after the Israeli parliament passed the first of 3 votes on a bill to remove the power of the Supreme Court to review ministers' decisions. 2 more votes are expected before the end of the month, before it becomes law.
After years of sustained financial crisis, Greece now stands as one of the EU's better performers. The growth of the Greek economy is significantly higher than the European average. The country is trying to keep its momentum, even though the overall European environment is no longer favourable.
Ενώ περιμένουμε ακόμα και με πολύ συντηρητικές εκτιμήσεις την ελληνική οικονομία να αναπτυχθεί φέτος το 2023 τουλάχιστον με 2,5%, προσωπικά πιστεύω ότι μπορεί να είναι κοντά στο 3% η ανάπτυξη της ελληνικής οικονομίας, η αντίστοιχη ανάπτυξη του συνόλου της Ευρωζώνης θα είναι κοντά στο 0,5%. Ωστόσο, όπως σας είπα, ο συνδυασμός του RRF, του Ταμείου Ανάκαμψης, με το γεγονός ότι στην Ελλάδα υπάρχει ένα σημαντικό επενδυτικό κενό που έχει δημιουργηθεί από όλα αυτά τα χρόνια της ύφεσης και της κρίσης, σημαίνει ότι η Ελλάδα και ξεκινάει από ένα χαμηλό επίπεδο και έχει όλα τα χρηματοδοτικά εργαλεία και όλες τις ευκαιρίες για να μπορέσει να κάνει τη θετική διαφορά έναντι των υπόλοιπων οικονομιών της Ευρωζώνης.
Οι πρόσφατες εκλογές στην Ελλάδα ανέδειξαν μια ισχυρή κυβέρνηση που δεσμεύτηκε να συνεχίσει στο δρόμο των μεταρρυθμίσεων και της δημοσιονομικής σύνεσης. Γεγονός που αναμένεται να παίξει καθοριστικό ρόλο για τους διεθνείς οίκους αξιολόγησης και την επιστροφή της χώρας στο κλαμπ των αξιόπιστων πιστωτών.
Political dynamics is a factor that we watch for all the ratings, and we have to take them into consideration when we look at any sovereign. And many places in Europe, you have really multiple coalition parties. Some of them are falling apart, some of them are weak, and there are very few governments which have a solid one-party majority, which helps put in place the policies of that government. And in this case, Greece does have one.
As the analysts at the rating agencies note, Greece is favoured by the fact that it is a services-oriented economy with tourism at its core. European countries such as Germany that rely heavily on manufacturing are experiencing lately greater pressure.
Try to keep cool. With Europe in the grip of a searing heat wave, a news anchor in Austria decided to reinforce that message in dramatic style. The country is one of several in Europe seeing temperatures in the high 30s. It sent people flocking to special cooling centres set up by local authorities. In Spain, forecasters say the heat may have peaked, passing 40 degrees in places. For many, the only respite was at the local swimming pool.
Nos hemos venido ya prontito porque va a ser un día de muchísima calor para estar un poco en la piscina y llevarlo un poquito mejor.
Y a pasarlo aquí, porque es que en casa no se puede estar, aunque tengas todo cerrado, y en la calle menos.
Similar conditions in France, where Lyon and other cities have sweltered for several days. But heavy storms are expected to cool things down for the rest of the week.
A state of emergency has been declared in the US state of Vermont after torrential rain triggered life-threatening flash floods. Roads in some areas are entirely underwater, leaving people trapped in their homes. One person died in New York's Hudson Valley as they tried to flee. In recent days, much of the US's northeast, including New York and Vermont, have seen some of the worst flooding in more than a decade, with more than 2 months' worth of rain in just 48 hours. Emergency teams from outside the region have been sent in to help.
Former Charles Manson cult follower Leslie Van Houten has been released from prison after serving 53 years of a life sentence. Van Houten was 19 when she was sentenced for her part in 2 notorious killings. In the late 1960s, cult leader Charles Manson directed his followers to commit 9 murders, including that of actress Sharon Tate, hoping the killings would start a race war, called Helter Skelter after a famous song by the Beatles. Manson died in prison in 2017. Smiling faces after a bitter legal battle over Aretha Franklin's estate. Her son Kel Franklin and his descendants will inherit the singer's main residence in Detroit. The jury concluded that a document found in a couch after the singer's death to be valid. It was dated from 2014 and corrected a previous handwritten document from 4 years earlier, in which the inheritance was otherwise divided among her 4 children. The house, which is part of an estate that includes money, jewellery and copyrights, was valued at $1.1 million US,